All right, we're recording again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Hammer Time Rackets podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Peter Cipriano. With me, we have Ed Hyde and Ben Costin. Ed, say hello.
Oh,
Ben?
Very, very good, Ed. Hi, guys. I'm excited to get into this one, actually.
Very excited to be talking to you all. Last time out, I think we actually set a Rackets world record of podcast views with over 300, which was absolutely shocking. So it's good to know that there are a couple hundred other people in the world that care enough about rackets to take the time at least to tune in to hearing other people talk about the sport. Today, we thought that it would be a good idea to copy the Shankman and Taylor Matthews yet again and start talking about the courts and our opinions of each of the courts starting in North America. So we're going to start from, I think, go west to east to the best of our knowledge without looking at a map, and start in Chicago. So we're going to discuss things like the varying speeds of the courts, how they play, what we like about them, what are some nice features and characteristics, some of the things that are tough, etc. But both of these guys, I think the first place both of you guys played was Chicago, correct? In the U.S. when you came over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of this.
You were both fellows. Were you both fellows at the same time, or Ed, were you a year before?
No, Heidi was the year before me.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
So why don't we start with Ed, since you have the seniority over Ben? What are your thoughts on the Chicago court one? We'll start with court one and then go to court two.
I love court one. I preferred it to court two. I thought it played pretty well. Took a decent amount of cut. So if you got in the service box, that was a good thing. And I think it just played pretty true most of the time. I'm not sure whether you agree with me, Ben.
The court definitely it grew on me. I started off hating it, kind of like I went in there, played like Medlow Vigona, just got absolutely smoked straight off. All my serves kind of foul cutting.
I had the same problem there when I first went.
Yeah, especially I don't know if they're using one or two covered balls now, but we're using single at the time, which definitely made it like quite light and foul cut quite a lot. But after I sort of figured that out, I quite liked it. I mean, it cut a bit, as Heidi said. It's quite true. It's quite kind of bouncy. There's nothing too kind of harsh about it. I mean, I think I'm the only one here that's played on it since they redid the front wall.
Yeah, I was going to ask how that plays.
Well, Sip, if you talk about what you know about it first, then I could maybe.
So my thoughts were slightly different than both of yours. I really struggled when I went there. I think I've been there on several occasions, but for tournaments, I felt like adjusting to that court from New York was pretty hard. I have the tendency to throw the ball too close to myself when I serve, which causes me to like cut down on the ball a lot. I think Ben, actually, having watched you play there, having watched Tom Billings play there, and a few other people who have sort of a more of a chopping serving motion, especially on the backhand side, I had some serious problems with foul cutting. You have to sort of slow your serve down, I feel like, and hit it a little bit flatter and more deliberately. It was odd for me. I'd never played on a rackets court that made the same sound as that front wall does, sort of that hollow sound.
Yeah.
Which I guess was caused by the fact that they built the now formerly new front wall in front of another front wall, which was the original front wall to the court. So it's my understanding that that court, the way it was built previously, like before this most recent construction, is actually about six inches longer, and then they just built the new front wall in front of the old front wall. So when they opened it up, they had to look at the old front wall to see if it was salvageable, and apparently it was not. Yeah, I'd say the new old front wall I think needed to be I guess to get some work done to it. I mean, it was a little bit wavy, and there were dead spots. But I'm interested to hear actually how the new court plays and what you think. I guess if they're going to be changing anything, what could be done to change it even more and make it even better.
Yeah, I think so. They've sorted out. Obviously, they rebuilt the wall again, and it doesn't sound hollow anymore. Sounds like a normal front wall now. I think what's changed is it grips onto it a bit longer, which when we played on it made it feel quite slow, even though it didn't have that hollow sound, so it appeared to kind of come off a bit quickly. But then it also took, because it gripped so much, it took off all the spin, so nothing really carried through to the back. Especially playing singles. I mean, in that US Open, I don't know if you watch Billings and Owen play, but barely any of their shots kind of made it to the back, just because it would kind of hold up on the wall. And in doubles as well, it sort of did a quite odd thing. If you get it, took off all the spins, so when you hit the side wall, it would kind of hit the side wall, grip on the front wall, and then shoot kind of the other way. So if I was boasting it, hitting a forehand into the right side wall, it would, no matter how kind of late I hit the front wall, it would always go side wall, front wall, and then shoot left into the side wall. So the angles sort of got a bit mixed up quite a lot, went up the middle. But it's just one thing we kind of had to adjust to. I mean, we all tried to play a bit shorter to kind of kill it short. It obviously, with the spin thing, the cut was hard. I don't think any of us could get it to come down off the bat. Rich did quite well and just hit it flat, which seemed to work the best. Higher contact, just going flat through it. But yeah, that's what I'd say. It just kind of takes off the spin, really.
I think with that court, the gallery's really pretty good, pretty cool. They've got a nice big gallery there. It's well lit. And having obviously two courts in one place that are totally different is a pretty unique thing. I guess how many courts do you guys, I guess it's Chicago, Queens, Harrow, where else? Does it? Yeah.
Easton.
Yep.
Just got two.
Marlborough, is that right?
Yep.
So there's a few places with two courts. Would you say that those courts play like exactly the same or similarly, or is it?
Most of them are pretty similar. I'd say Chicago is a bit like Tunbridge in how they're both completely different.
Yeah.
And it's probably the only place where it's completely the opposite.
Yeah, I would say in Chicago on court one, I don't know what they've done with the back wall since they redid the court, but I found that a lot of times it was pretty hard to ace someone because the ball would actually stay up a bit, and it was pretty true. It wouldn't, like, it was very hard to roll a ball out ever really, unless you did something unusual. Like I would find that when serving, like a good serve there is like just sort of gets you in the point. I think Ben, having watched you play that match with Rich, you were sort of hitting lob serves, I think, in your finals match in the US Open. Why don't you tell us the thinking behind that? I was always interested to understand what the heck was going on with that.
Well, one thing whatever I was doing, I just knew it wasn't working. Like Rich was beating me, he was playing better than me, so I knew I had to do something differently. But it was mainly just every time I was serving, it would just sit up and he'd hit it down the line. And I'd have to chase into that corner, and I just didn't have enough time to get out of the box really. So I just hit the lob serves, partly to kind of get back quickly, partly do something different. But I also found it, if I got the length kind of right, it was the only one which would drop off the back wall. Just make it a bit tougher, force him to boast it rather than coming out quickly and him hitting the line ball. So that was the thinking behind that, really.
Interesting. Well, having watched a lot of matches in person and on YouTube, there, the one thing I think that was unique and I always found intimidating, like that sound that you hear, like the thud of that hollow wall. I guess prior to now, watching doubles matches and stuff like that, where I'm just like, it makes it, instead of that like high pinging like rock sound, just hitting like it's like a totally different noise. I always found it intimidating to watch. Moving on to court 2, completely different court. Everything about that court is like 100% different than court 1. I would say for myself, that's actually one of my favorite courts to play on personally. I almost wish that court 2 and court 1 were switched. Ed, did you guys play when you were a fellow there? Did you guys get a lot of court time on court 2, or was it all court 1? And what were your thoughts about court 2?
It was a mix, so we mixed it up. When I got to Chicago, I absolutely hated court 2 and did everything I could to make sure I played on court 1. But when the courts sort of got busy in the evening, you did find yourself on court 2, and for a while I just really didn't like it because it felt a lot smaller. Obviously, like the color is a lot darker, and I found it took a lot more cut. So if someone got on a run in the service box, you were toast.
Yeah.
But I think once I got my head around that, and once I got used to it, and once I sort of practiced my serving, I sort of grew. The court grew on me. So if I was playing a member in the evening in sort of a competitive match, someone like Marty Kinsella, big match in the evening, I'd make sure I practice my serving all day. So if I got the service box, it was easy to play on because I found you could serve through people quite easily on that court.
Yeah, if they're not seeing it well on that return, you can be very quickly finished with your match.
So it grew on me throughout my time there, probably to the extent that I ended up preferring it towards the end of my time at Chicago.
Yeah, I'd say I was basically the opposite of Heidi. It was initially I absolutely loved it, and then as I played more on court 1, I kind of sort of forgot how to play on court 2 a bit, because all the members would want to play on court 1, sort of on the show court. But yeah, I just, for me, I personally like quite a severe court, one that comes down. Just like serving on it, you can get on a good rhythm. And also off the front ball didn't foul cut at all. So
yeah.
Me coming over with sort of adjusting from 2 serves to 1 serve as well, I could aim quite high on the wall and get it to come down. Whereas on court 1, if I knew if I aimed high and I went underneath it and foul cut it, then it might just go in the gallery or go anywhere. So I was quite happy off on court 2. But as I said, when I played more on court 1, I sort of forgot how to play on it a bit more and adjusted my serving and whatever to court 1.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about court 2, I guess, which will carry us into the next court, but that court, with the way the ball plays, I think the way the court's painted, the paint tends to come off on the balls, and it's weird because it almost makes the ball look like it's knuckling, like it's not. But when you're seeing a ball come off the walls and stuff, it makes it a little funky to see, to try to pick up the spin of the ball and stuff like that. But yeah, to your point, the taking the serve it's an easy court to serve on, difficult court to return on unless you really are seeing the ball well, and you know what the spin is going to do.
That was for the fellows. That was always a really bad job having to do the ball played on court 2 because they'd usually be like black and the tape would part of the ball almost. So you had to really like get your fingernails into the tape. And also another thing that comes to my mind when I think about those 2 courts and the galleries is I just think they're like really conducive to like feet stamping from the spectators. So I made playing tournaments and being on court and just like hearing next door just like this stamping from the galleries. I just think the way it's laid out, people, as opposed to like clapping or shouting, just stamp their feet. I always used to find that quite funny, and it creates quite a sort of hooligan-like atmosphere.
Yeah, I'd say I really enjoy playing like a big match in Chicago. As Heidi said, like they just get into it. They get stuck in. There's loads of things you can kind of make noise with.
And you're right, sort of on top of the court, right? So I think the bottom floor of the gallery is right, like flush with the top of the back wall. Am I right?
Yeah, you feel like even if you
feel like you're sitting on the court.
Exactly.
And there's also easy access to the bar right behind the courts and just by the real tennis court, so you can quickly pop out between games and fetch a few beverages before returning.
Yeah, and I think the way that the club is laid out there, it's like open up above, and I think for whatever reason, for me at least, like it can get very, very loud. Like you can, with a large crowd, I guess just the way that the sound echoes, it can be super loud, which is great for like an atmosphere of a big match.
Yeah, it's awesome there. When the crowd gets going, you can fit a lot of people in there, and people are shouting, people are stamping their feet, people are hurling abuse. It's great.
Very good. So I think that concludes our Chicago review. Moving on to Detroit. I think Ben, you've not been to Detroit, correct? I think if you liked Court 2 in Chicago, you would like Detroit. And Ed, feel free to chime in and disagree or agree. I went there for the first time and I absolutely loved that court. It had sort of every characteristic of a court, which I enjoyed. It was a bit slower. You could hit any serve as hard as you wanted, and pretty much everything would go floor back wall. When it's cold, everything, like the ball will either roll out or stay super low on the serve return. It's pretty true, like all the walls are the same. The paint does come off on those balls, so it makes it a little funky, but it'll stay pretty straight. It's kind of similar to Court 2 in some ways. And then actually, funnily enough, the left-hand side of the court is actually the wall and the back wall, I think, flush to the actual front of the building. So when it gets cold in Detroit, which it does because it's Detroit in the wintertime, you can, like, some guys with backhand serves can just be basically impossible to return the ball. I remember, I guess it was the U.S. Amateur, maybe like 2017 or 18, playing with Christian in the doubles, and I played him in singles too. He just had his backhand serve going. I think I lost the first game 15-love to him in singles because he was just like crushing the serve. I just could not get him out of the box. And his hammering and everything was rolling out in the back. But it's a nice court. It's fun. It's, the gallery is similar to Chicago. It's almost flush. There's like an inch or two where people's feet are covered, but it plays similarly, and it's a cool place to be. Good gallery too. Ed, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you on most of those points. The thing that sort of comes to my mind is the temperature. Whenever I played there, it's been absolutely freezing.
Oh yeah.
You come from sort of the inside the club where the fire's roaring, a few cigars maybe lit, and then you walk on court and it's about -10. And yeah, you're wearing tracksuit bottoms, you're wearing loads of layers, so it is pretty brutal in that sense. And I guess that lends itself to some runs of the serve. Once people get in the box, it's pretty hard to get them out. I remember playing Jonathan Larkin in the US Open there in 2017, and that was over pretty quickly, just because he just went from one box to another serving. But yeah, apart from that, I really enjoy playing there. I think on the whole, it's pretty true. There's the occasional bit in the court that misbehaves, but I guess that fits in with sort of Detroit's image as quite a sort of quirky club. So I think, full of character. It's slightly different, but on the whole, I love playing there.
I think a fun fact about Detroit is whoever built the club and the court, I was told by somebody there, I don't remember who, that whoever it was had gone to Manchester to check out that club, and they didn't exactly copy it, but they sort of based the Detroit club after the way that the Manchester club was laid out. And actually, if you think about it, you're walking in, court's right on your left. You got a room right before the court, right before. I guess it's in the back, and then a couple of rooms to the side. It's a similar layout, and even though the courts don't play very similarly, it's a cool, like, very interesting architecture, and it's like I guess brings your mind back to what it would have looked like in the past, coming up to that place, because it's a interesting juxtaposition of a very old building next to brand new shiny office towers, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, you're right. The geography of it, they're both sort of on the outskirts of the cities, Manchester and Detroit. Quite interesting locations. Are very, very similar in that sense. Both sort of quite homely clubs as well. Compact. Members are great. Detroit, shout out to Glenn and the kitchen staff at Detroit for producing one of the world's best burgers. You always know, even how cold it is on court, and you might get thrashed, and you can walk off to a shower and a steam, then a massive burger.
That, and I think the level of enthusiasm coming from both the members and Mr. Tosland, it's always great to be there. Get to go up. I've always had a blast there, and thoroughly enjoyed my time on court. I guess we'll go up to Montreal next. So crossing the border into Canada. Ben, you had not played there, correct?
I've not played here. I have watched sort of a stream of the Can-Am religiously, mate.
I'm sure you have. What were your impressions of the stream from the Can-Am, at least? Get you to chime in here.
It seemed kind of tough out the back when in the rallies once it got going. I found there seemed to be a lot of winners going on if you landed it quite deep, but on the whole it seemed pretty true. I mean, people struggled to serve there, it looked like quite a lot would kind of foul cut, or just they'd struggle to get length. That's about what I can say about watching it online, really, without getting a feeling.
You went, I think we played up there, didn't we? In the Can-Am, the one year I was there, at least.
Yeah, that must have been 2017.
Yeah, I think that's right. What were your impressions?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was quite sort of a slick court, reasonably quick. Nothing sort of untowards about it. I think the hardest part about playing at Montreal, and especially during the Can-Am, is the carnage that is unfolding in the gallery. And try to stay focused on trying to hit the ball reasonably well. I like the steps sort of going down into the court. It's a bit like a football dugout tunnel sort of thing. I like that. It's a nice touch. Nothing. I think it's a pretty good court on the whole.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges with that court for most people besides myself is dealing with the carnage that's going on around the club. Many a time your partner or opponent will be half or fully in the bag for a match, regardless of the time of day. As an example, my partner in the doubles that year that we played, I walked into the club, I think it was a Friday at 3:30, and my partner was still asleep face down on the couch in the locker room with his tuxedo on. And it went downhill from there in the doubles, unfortunately. We took a tough loss, but it's all water under the bridge now. I found that court, Ben, to your point, actually pretty astute observations, having not played there. I found that if you get the ball deep in that court, it was pretty hard to read the ball, coming on the serves. I played Rory Giddens there after he had beaten Jonathan, and I was hopeless at trying to return his serve. He sort of comes around that ball a lot on both sides, and found it difficult to to deal with the cut and understanding where the heck it was going. I also struggled a bit, and I think a number of people did on my backhand side. They have that sort of like, not a crow's nest, but an area up to the side on the left wall where people can hang out and watch from the left wall side. I think I saw more than one person hit backhand serves that flew out of court into that area, which is a difficult placement on a foul cut to do. But all in all, it is pretty quick, pretty true, slick floor. I remember. I think the tin there is an inch or two higher, so you have to be that much more accurate.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was just an interesting feature of the court. And another great club, and in terms of enthusiasm, I think the Canadians are a different breed and a totally different dynamic there. I guess it's like the closest thing I would say is Detroit, just the scene and the levels of enthusiasm are fantastic there.
I've only done the Can-Am once, but that is definitely one to do if you haven't done it. 5 days, some good rackets, lots of dinners, lots of sort of things to do off court. The club's great. You can make it your home for sort of the week. I think there's a steam, isn't there, sauna?
Yep, I think they have old hardball singles or two there as well. But yeah, the people that tend to go to the Can-Am tend to be stalwarts. Like every single year they're there, and I think it's something that those guys look forward to. The people that I think Farmall almost always goes, Coyne almost always goes. You get a lot of the Brits, several of the fellows. Larkin, I think almost always goes. Devereaux is there frequently. So it's always a good turnout there, and at least the early matches are interesting for one reason, and then the finals and semifinals matches are interesting for a whole other reason. But yeah, it's a good place to play. Moving on, I guess the next most westerly court would be Philadelphia. Am I right here? Yeah, right? So Philly, I think we've all played there, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Ben, your thoughts on Philadelphia? Do we play each other there? No.
No.
No, we played in Chicago. What are your thoughts on Philly?
I mean, when you think of Philadelphia, if you ask any player, they always say Philadelphia is the best rackets court in the world. And I think they say that just because it's really quick and true. You never get a bad bounce. It kind of behaves exactly how you want it to behave in the whole. And that's how I'd sum it up, really. It's just true, predictable. Yeah, that's what I'd say about it.
Ed?
Really.
Yeah, I agree with Ben. There's not much you can't really complain about the court. The only court that comes close is probably the old court at Tunbridge, which Mackey always harps on about. So yeah, they run each other quite close. But I think Philadelphia probably just pips the Tunbridge old court. Decent pace, takes a bit of cut. Nothing really sort of untowards or surprising about it. Yeah, no complaints from me.
Yeah, so I mean, incredibly fast court, like as true as it gets. I think you have to adjust your serve there. If you're chopping on that ball, or hitting it a little bit too hard, it'll fly on you out of court, as exemplified by the first serve of the 2015 World Championship singles match, where Stout served out of court to start the match off. I don't know if anyone.
I watched it the other day, actually.
So he started off the match in truly intimidating fashion with Hopton serving out of court in a World Championship singles. Props to and shout out to Mr. Stout there. Yeah, I mean, coming from New York, which is also a fast court, it's quite a true court as well. It's a bit of an adjustment, but yeah, that place it plays really nicely. It's super quick. The floor and the walls are slick. It takes a good serve, but it won't reward like shitty serves that you're hitting hard and stuff like that, it'll come out. And let you. I would say it's a like you can definitely rally there, but if the person who has better ball control, I think almost always wins. On other courts, maybe like a Chicago 2 or Detroit, you can get a guy just smashing the ball around the court and having it roll out in the back if he's hitting, deep length and getting a little bit lucky. But in Philly, if you're not controlling the ball and keeping it shorter, I think you're going to have a hard time doing well because it'll go off the back and get killed right away. That's one of my favorite galleries, I would have to say. The double, is it a double or a triple decker? I'm trying to think. I guess they have the one set, and then they have the high crow's nest. I think it's the 2-decker, right?
Yeah, it's a tiered, I think.
Which was cool. I had never been to a Rackets court before Philly that had the 2-tier, and that was for a world championship. Totally packed, very cool. And I got the squash doubles court right next to it, I believe also used to be a Rackets court. Fun fact for everyone there. Too bad we don't see any more side-by-side Rackets courts, as many at least.
It's a bit of a trek to the gallery though, isn't it?
It is. You got to go up the winding staircase or all the way around past the pro shop to get up.
Yeah, lift up there.
Yes. It's
the field to Chicago, I guess, where you've got sort of squash, court tennis, all within sort of quite close proximity of each other, plus the pro shop.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, I'd say the surfaces there are as clean and true as possible. The court tennis court, the floor especially, the surface there couldn't be more different and more like severe on balls. I think the balls in Philly can last a heck of a long time. No paint or anything comes off on them, and they'll just get super hot and you can play with them for several games in a row. Whereas on the tennis courts, at least, your balls are going to get torn up within about 3 minutes of playing.
Yeah, I would say it's also got one of those really old school heavy doors that kind of never has a weird bounce, but it is one of the hardest things you'll ever have to open.
Who was the fellow who smashed his finger in the door before even stepping out?
Yeah, that was Ollie Carhill. That was the year I was there.
Classic time.
I just remember him coming out and saying, "Respect the mullet," in one of the dinners. I don't remember what it was. Good.
Yeah, I remember efficiently that new part.
Just outside the Rackets court, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a little sort of room where there's just a beer tap.
The beer tap.
That is a serious location in the club because it's quite hidden away, and you can just go in there and refill quite close to the court, which is always handy.
Definitely helpful for many people besides myself.
Tommy Shields' favorite place.
I can imagine so.
Yeah,
good for that backhand. Loosen up the backhand for him.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so Philly, we've done actually a court that exists, which is not in use, but is just east of Philly and west of New York City, is Lakewood, New Jersey, which belonged to the late great Jay Gould. The court backs up to the tennis court there, which is still in some use. I believe Neil Smith, John Lumley, I think Whitehouse and Asher might go there as well to give some lessons to the people in Lakewood who go to the school. I'm forgetting what the name of the college is. Forgive me, but the Rackets court, you can tell it must have been an incredibly nice court. It's painted white now, and they've put a carpet on the floor, but you can just tell like the walls are super clean. It got very little play, and the tennis court is as well. It gets a little bit dusty, but I can imagine that place. If you've never been there, they have an indoor polo arena, which is now the basketball court. They've got I think one or two old hardball single squash courts. One court's like a red wood court that might have been like a rugby fives court. Or is there a Winchester fives? Is that a thing?
There is a Winchester
I
5.
think it might have been a Winchester fives court. There was a squash tennis court, which it may have been also. So, which was slightly smaller than the old hardball American squash. But the rackets court and the tennis court still exist. The tennis is still in use. Rackets, they've unfortunately drilled basically like a huge hole through the front wall and have run some like sort of like HVAC piping through and destroyed the court tragically. So I don't think that court's coming back to life anytime soon. But just wanted to call out that existed. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that for every single court ever once we go around the world to do the rest of these, because there are apparently thousands in places like India. And several in South America. So moving on to New York, my home club, my personal favorite court. Ed, I guess you were there for, what were you there for? Do you remember?
Silver Racket in 2016.
The 2016 Silver Racket. I don't remember the significance of what happened in that tournament. But go on. What are your thoughts? What was your impression of New York?
Well, first and foremost, what a club that is. I think as soon as you walk in, although the entrance is a little it's quite small, but once you get into the club itself, it's just unbelievable. The sort of size and the feel of the club. Great locker room, great changing rooms, and then you just got everything there that you could possibly want. Court tennis, rackets, squash, good pro shop, good pool table, I think, from memory.
Several pool and billiards tables, heated billiards tables.
Spent too long playing pool, but yeah, I've been going to the court pretty quick, pretty true, good gallery, conducive to a good atmosphere. I think when I was there, actually, it was the World Doubles, so Stout and Larkin versus
Ports and Titchener-Barrett,
and Christian, and it was the second. I think it was the second. Yeah, it's the second leg.
Yep.
For it being at Queen's, so which despite I think Stout and Larkin winning pretty easily, that the atmosphere was still good, and everyone had a great time. That tournament's good fun. The Silver Racket.
It is good fun. It's too bad that we weren't able to experience it in the fall in November. It's the same weekend just about every year. Remembering that match, actually, Ports and Titchener-Barrett lost, I think 4-1 was it in the UK, and ended up winning the first game. And I think they may have led in the second.
They won the first game, didn't they?
Yeah, and it was very close in the second. I think Jonathan and James came back, and if I recall correctly, Jonathan, especially at one point on a game ball rather, made one like ridiculous, just quick hand get that kept them in the game. And I think James also had made at least one or two gets at the back for lets, which were just outrageous. So if anyone's bored after listening to this and have nothing to do with their time, given COVID, go watch that match. It's a very fun match to watch. High quality dubs. New York for me, where I learned, it's very true. It's quite bouncy. It's fast. We've had some problems with the front wall over the past few years, crumbling a little bit, but they've managed to repair patches of the front wall, and now it's sort of held up a little bit better. I think anytime you pour the concrete or whatever the heck they're pouring, giving it time to rest and settle and dry up is important. So I think during COVID, or just before COVID rather, they were able to do that. Gallery's fantastic. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I think quite an interesting point a flag up for those people that haven't been, and perhaps those guys that have, or girls that have just played rackets in the UK, is that New York and Chicago and Philly, the courts are on like the 4th floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of a culture shock.
Yeah, in nearly all courts in the UK, it's on the ground floor, whereas at New York it's on the 3rd or 4th floor, isn't it?
It's on the 4th floor.
So yeah, obviously you don't realize when you're inside and playing. But yeah, just thinking about it seems a bit. But it's quite awesome in many ways, but it's a bit scary to think you're all that way up playing rackets.
Yeah, the one thing that a lot of people mention the first time that they come in and play on those courts is the incredible ceiling heights there. So you're on the 4th floor of a building on between 52nd and 53rd and Park Avenue, amongst hundreds of the biggest skyscrapers in the world and some of the most expensive real estate on the planet. And the 4th floor with skylights, which let in some, they let in some natural light. They must be, I don't know, like 50, 60, 70 feet high. It's ridiculous. I don't think I've ever seen a ball hit the skylight on either the doubles or the rackets court. So which, if you're playing rackets, no matter how good or bad you are, typically you'll manage at some point in your rackets career to hit every single, any part of the ceiling, the side wall, the back wall, out the back, up into the gallery, smashing people on the head in the gallery. Speaking of which, saw a couple of headshots in the most recent singles world championship and doubles world championship. Tom Billings, shout out to you, drilling, I think it was Mitch Kelly and Howard McMorris, both in the head, in matches that he played in world championships. So bit of a danger. I don't know what it is about that gallery, but I've never seen so many headshots. I broke my stepmother's finger playing in a doubles club championship there. Devereaux hit his own wife at least once. So people are just ball magnets up there. I don't know what it is. I guess it's maybe that the gallery there is very steep.
Yeah.
So you're almost on top of the court no matter where you are in the gallery. Whereas, in Philly, it sort of goes further back. I'd say Chicago is similar to New York in sort of it's very steep horizontally, but it's like a bandbox in there. I think the court can get very hot even in like November, December if there's a big crowd. It's fun to play there in the summertime because in the winter, if you're serving well with the right spin, you can just roll serves out repeatedly. But in the summertime, it's basically impossible to because it's so bouncy and fast. So you can make it almost like a game of squash. And learning like that actually helps a lot because you get to rally out a lot more. But still have to learn how to play the proper way with keeping the ball on the floor. So that's New York. I think we will go north now to Tuxedo. Ben Costin took a really tough loss to me in Tuxedo in the Gold Rackets, and I think it was 2018?
18, I think.
2018. Tragically, Ben had beaten Zach Sachs 15-love, 18-17, I believe, in the round prior. But it injured himself in the I guess in what was it, in the first or second game? Did you get taken out there?
So it was the second game. I remember playing Zach, and I was 15-love, 9-love, playing the sort of best rackets.
Destroying him. I was very nervous about the final.
I was playing, incredibly well for me at the time. And then something just went to my hip. I just lunged for a ball, went a bit far, and then suddenly I've kind of noticed it, but it's not ridiculously kind of painful. And then he's got back to sort of 9-8, and then we've had a close match, and I've sort of played on it at 18-17, as you said. But then the next morning I played for doubles with Walter Dean, and I was having to cover quite a lot of court.
No.
I mean, our initial tactics went out the window, and it was a very first string, second string game.
You should have tapped him to play first string for that match. That's a big mistake there.
Yeah, we could have switched it around a bit more. But again, it got worse and worse. And I just remember I had to pull out in the tennis as well. I think I was
We
due
were
to play
playing
you.
each other in the semis in the tennis.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to that one. But yeah, unfortunately, that's my story of Tuxedo. But saying that, it was probably my favourite court over there.
It is a great court.
I really enjoyed it. It was quite quick. Came down. I found the sidewalls really nice. I don't know if that's just me. I just remember playing doubles. A few practice doubles there. Just really like it off the sidewalls. Seeing it really well. Kind of didn't come out too wide. I think the balls were a bit different though. We were using the pumper balls back then, so it kind of changed the characteristics a bit.
Horrible.
Which, each to their own, but wasn't one of my favourite. But yeah, I liked it on the whole. Quick, could serve well.
Yeah,
Value.
it's got a little bit of everything. Ed, what are your we played there too, I think. Yeah. What were your thoughts about that court?
Yeah, the 2017 Tuxedo Gold Racket semi-finals. I think you won the first game quite easily, and then somehow
you had a good game in the second game. Yeah,
I think went to 13 all maybe.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had a good scrap there. I think from my memory is that if you get in the box again and you really cut it, it does come down. I think there were quite a few aces in that match. And I think I played Guy Devro in the round before, and it was just a serve off basically.
Good win to take him in Tuxedo. He's very tough on that court.
Yeah,
that's a good effort. Nearly take your game or sip as well. Would be in the top 20 by now.
Yeah, I think I'd retired after that. That would have been me done for my Rackets career. Wouldn't have got any better than that. Yeah, so yeah, just I think the thing that stands out is the serving. If you get in that box, it really does reward a serve if you give the serve a bit of purchase. But it's different to New York, but in terms of the scenery and the club in general, that's just an awesome place to be as well. Especially in the sort of height of winter where there's snow and you've got the lake next to the clubhouse. There aren't many better places to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, Tuxedo is a great place. It's very, very unique. It's like a throwback to the 1920s almost when you drive in there. And I don't remember the first time I was over there, but driving down and going by the lake in front of those houses, and then driving down that hill and then around to the club is a beautiful, beautiful drive and a great view. Pretty scenic area for some lawn tennis courts to be as well. I'm not a lawn tennis player. However, the only lawn tennis matches I've ever played were there. Famously had to serve underhand because I could not hit an overhand serve in. But yeah, great club. Chisholm, I guess now Leon Smart. I haven't seen him there yet, but Tim, great pro, really nice tennis court. And the Rackets court, I would say the most similar Rackets court to that is probably Philly for me. They play very, very similarly. Tuxedo is a little bit slower, and I think that's only because of like where it's situated. It's I think the front wall, and I want to say maybe the right wall are the actual outside of the building. And now they do have heat, but like 5 or 10 years ago, I wasn't there 10 years ago, but at least 5 years ago, I think prior to them getting any heat, I mean, if you were playing Guy Devro, for example, and having to deal with his lefty serve, it would just roll out on you. It would be, 0 degrees and he'd be smashing the ball a zillion miles an hour. The ball tends to kick in off the back wall, off those serves. So it's a bit of an adjustment in that respect. But it's very true and plays really nicely. And watch some good doubles there too with Larkin and Stout versus Snell and Mole, which was probably the most comprehensive ass whipping that I've ever seen in a big doubles match, besides my own ass whipping by Mole and Bailey in Manchester with Christian. But that was I think maybe multiple games, 15 love for Stout and Larkin, if not at least one, and just complete dominance, court playing like just beautifully well. And the ball can move there too. It's pretty fast. So
say that there was a match I saw in the US Pro Singles in 2017, Barney Tanfield versus Dave Mackey, and
that's hard.
Two quite big guys, and I mean Dave could barely run, so was sort of forced to just whack it and hammer serve. But Barney hits the ball pretty hard as well, and I just remember, I think I even may have marked that match. I was just like, I felt in danger in the gallery because they were just whacking it, and the court took it. It was quite an effective tactic. But yeah, takes pace well.
Great court, tuxedo. Good fun memories there as well. The Gold Rackets is a blast always.
On weekend.
Moving up, I think this is it. We got Boston. We've all Ben, you've been there. Ed, you've not. Or no, Ben, you've not been there.
Neither of us. It's just Yusuf, I think.
It's me. All right. My thoughts about Boston.
No.
It's about as slow as it gets. It plays almost more like a squash court than a rackets court in some respect. It's very, very, it's as difficult as possible to actually ace someone on the serve. The ball does not take cut off the back wall. So if you're not good at returning or serving, but you're really fast and you're good at rallying, it'll suit you. Because really all you have to do is like sort of pop the serve in. It's going to come back no matter what. So the ball will stay up, at least a foot off the ground almost at all times. Pretty fun court to play on because of that. Like you're actually getting real rallies, and you got to be in some decent shape to play there. While it looks like it's in bad shape just from like the watermarks and like the old calcification stuff, like look like spider cracking on the front wall, it actually plays like a new court. Like it's really nice. The floor is good. The walls are all really true. It's pretty bouncy and again slow. So you can have a really fun game there and get some nice long rallies. The balls, I guess the paint does come off on the ball like a couple of these other courts. So it's like it's a little like Detroit or Chicago in that respect, but totally opposite in terms of how it plays slowly and bouncy. I would say it's about as different a court from any of the others that I can think of that we've already talked about. The only court that I've played on that comes anywhere close to being similar would be Manchester a little bit, but not really. How Manchester is bouncy.
I mean, I remember watching Hopton play Billings in that US Open, must have been a couple of years back, and it just rallies just the whole time. I mean, no one could seem to put the ball away because obviously we're both great retrievers, and just everything seemed to be gettable off the back ball.
Yeah, you'd expect that normally, but in Boston, that's obviously magnified. So I think that's pretty much it for our review of the courts in the U.S. I think next time we're going to go to the U.K. I'll have a lot less to say, having only been to, I think, play on 3 or 4 courts there. But we'll be interested to hear these boys' review of all the school courts and things like that. And then I think after that we'll switch it up and maybe do an interview of one of the old boys, or possibly discuss some issues in the game which we think are slightly more controversial. So we'll see what we come up with after that. But stay tuned. Thanks everyone for tuning in, boys. Say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks everyone. Take care. Bye.